So I first learned about Wingfield Ministries when I was in high school. I went to high school with Steve's daughter, Michelle. She was in the same grade as I was. Steve would often be our chapel speaker. We went to a Christian high school. He would talk about what the ministry was doing, and we became acquainted that way. Also, Barb, Steve's wife, was our librarian that year, so I got to know the whole family during high school, and we went to church together. So I was recently asked to become the president of Wingfield Ministries. For a little bit more than the past 3 years, I have been the director of the Lodestar Mountain Inn, which is the 500 plus acre tract out in West Virginia that we run for pastors, veterans, and first responders as a retreat center, and then for the One Life program. Since the grand opening of the Lodestar Mountain Inn, I've been out here running the events and just kind of running the day-to-day operations. And as Steve has been looking at the fact that he would like to have a success for somebody to take the reins while he's still also involved, he came to me and asked if I would consider being the president. So that became official last month. I've been doing it a little bit more than a month now officially. So still working very much out here at the Lodestar Mountain Inn, but also transitioning into taking the reins of the ministry, doing the operations, and Steve will maintain being the CEO, giving overall guidance and vision and direction, and I will work very closely with him to make sure that everything happens. Number one, the heartbeat is evangelism. Steve has been an evangelist for close to 50 years. That is his overriding passion, to get the Word of God out there, to expose as many people to Christ as possible. In doing that, Steve has been amazingly faithful in how the Spirit is moving over the years. He's been involved in overseas ministries in Romania, in Africa. Our current African campaign right now, which is our international branch, we do a lot of work with training and equipping pastors so that they can then go out and spread the gospel. Steve has been involved throughout the late 90s and the 2000s. He did a lot of tent crusades, so up and down the Shenandoah Valley and other places. He actually owned a circus tent, so he would take this circus tent out and they would get a large band, something that would draw a crowd, and give him the opportunity to share the gospel with that crowd. As that went on, Steve realized, that's kind of turning into just a big party of people who are already Christians. So he realized, this isn't as effective as it once was. So he started looking for other opportunities, and he had the opportunity to get into the NASCAR world, and that opened up Victory Weekend. So when Steve started working with Victory Weekend, he would go out onto the NASCAR tracks, and I remember him telling me that at one of the tracks he went and said, "Hey, where can I set up my stage trailer?" And they said, "The only place we have available, we call it Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a terrible place. You don't want to go there." And Steve said, "That's where I want to go, because that's where the people who need Christ are." So he set up there, and he would do same thing as with the Crusades, where he'd bring in a band to draw a crowd. And this crowd, he said, it was a very different crowd from the tent crusades he did, because tent crusades, a lot of Christians there bringing their unsaved friends. This was a crowd of raw NASCAR fans. So they were coming with their beer in hand, they were coming smoking cigarettes and all the stuff that don't normally come along with a Christian event. But he was seeing amazing results. People just flocking there to listen to the music, but then staying and actually listening to the preaching and getting saved. During that time frame, Steve really learned what the hardship of the veteran community, and there's a lot of veterans in that crowd, and they would tell him their stories, and he really developed a passion for the veterans and to reach out to them. And so the Victory Weekend really became the veterans ministry. Unfortunately, COVID really put a damper on the NASCAR ministry. We've done a few things since post-COVID, but really it hasn't opened up like it used to. But post-COVID also, the Lodestar Mountain Inn has really, that's when we got finished building out here, when we started having events. And we've switched a lot of Victory Weekend focus out to here because Steve always wanted, even when he was fully engaged in the NASCAR ministry, he still wanted Lodestar Mountain Inn to be the retreat center where pastors, veterans, and first responders would come to be renewed, to experience God out here. It's an amazing place where you're out here with nature, and I hear time and time again, you can feel God's presence on the grounds here. Steve likes to say, yeah, we're in West Virginia. It's almost heaven. You can't. It's not heaven here, but you can see it from here. It's an amazing place as we transitioned into the Lodestar Mountain Inn being one of the primary focuses, just what that meant for the ministry, focusing on the renewal of pastors, veterans, and first responders. And then very quickly we partnered up with the One Life Institute. Steve really had a passion for bringing them in, and I'll admit I did not share his passion when he first shared it with me, because I questioned how did these young students, how did that pair up with the mission of the Lodestar Mountain Inn? We've had that student program out here for 3 years now. We bring in students after they've graduated high school. It's intended to be a gap year program, which honestly I say that's also a misnomer, because they earn 27 college credits while they're here. They really learn their faith. They learn how to defend their faith, and they learn how to share their faith while they're here. The other thing they do, and this is where I really see it dovetailing into what we've done, we teach them service, the value of service, what biblical service looks like. That's lost on our current culture. Service is looked down at. We're working with the students to show them that no matter where you are in life, no matter what your role is, serving others is an honor, and serving them in a godly fashion is an expectation that we should have of ourselves as Christians. They learn to serve at the retreats we have for pastors, veterans, and first responders. They learn how to serve them, and they also see the people that we serve respond to them. And watching the students and those that we serve, watching them bond over the weekends or during the week-long programs that we have out here has been amazing. In the 3 years that we've been doing it, I've come to realize absolutely what a fit it is. We are training and equipping the next generation for Christ, but we are also tying them together with these pastors, veterans, and first responders that we're serving, and with the church groups who come out here. One of the things with the One Life program that has really meant a lot to me is understanding that we are taking young people, and I look at them, young people know when they're in high school, they know what their church believes. They know what their friends believe and what their youth group believes. They know what their family believes. And then they leave and they go to college. Once they get to college, they start hearing from the professors who are there to teach them, who they trust, and they start telling them there is no God. And they start degrading their faith. And what we're doing here, we're preparing them. They're spending 9 months here. They're really learning to be discipled. They're learning what their faith means to them, how to read the Bible, how to study the Bible, because so many people just don't understand how to apply the Bible to them and to their stage of life. They're learning that. They're also learning a lot of life skills. But the overall outcome for them being here is for them to be fully discipled to the point that as they leave, whether they go to the workforce, the military, the college environment, they are prepared to share their faith. What it has really come to mean to me about discipleship, when I grew up, discipleship really just kind of meant becoming more learning more about your faith, learning more about who Jesus is, and learning more about the Bible. But to me, discipleship has taken on a whole new meaning, because evangelism was not preached to me as when I was young. It's something that I've really started the past few years, really catching the fire for evangelism. And I've come to realize that discipleship should have an outcome, and the outcome of discipleship should be evangelism. You should be prepared once you're discipled to go out and evangelize and make more disciples and then prepare them to make more disciples. And that's the goal of this One Life program, to take these students to get them ready to share their faith and to mentor and disciple others who will then in turn do the same thing. And if we can keep that pattern going, we feel like we can be part of a revival that happens in America. So there's a number of ways that people can support Wingfield Ministries. Out at the Lodestar Mountain Inn, we've got lots of volunteer opportunities. We've got 500 plus acres out here, so there's always something going on, always building projects going on. If you like to swing a hammer, if you like to run a chainsaw, if you like to work in the kitchen to help feed the students or help serve with when we have a group out here, all kinds of volunteer opportunities out here. Specifically, other ways that you could support Wingfield Ministries financially, we have a lot of opportunities such as supporting the pastors and veterans programs. I would love to be able to look at any pastor or veteran or first responder that I'd like to invite out here and say, hey, I've got a fully sponsored place for you. Somebody else has already paid the bill, so you can come out here and simply relax and focus on resting and rejuvenating and connecting with God in a special way. So we've got the sponsorships for the pastors and veterans. So the One Life Scholarship Fund is a fund that we set up in honor of Wayne Wingfield. So Wayne was Steve's older brother, and Wayne, he was a pastor, and he was out here. His heart was really out here. He didn't actually see the One Life program get started, but he poured himself into this place to help get ready for the students to come out here. So we've named it the Wayne Wingfield One Life Scholarship Fund, and that goes to help offset the costs to keep the costs lower for the students who come out here. Another way to help out, we have our general fund, which just that fund helps provide for all the different aspects of ministry that we do. We do intentional ministry every day. Every person who works for the ministry is intentional about the ministry that they do, is intentional about the people who they talk to, is intentional about praying for people, praying on the phone. You'll often walk into somebody's office and they're on the phone praying for somebody. We have our international program that comes out of the general fund. And then we do other events like our Memorial Day event, which we have traditionally done at the fairground, which draws a large crowd of usually around 2,000 people to share the gospel to them. And that general fund, along with some specific support around the Memorial Day program, funds that. Oh goodness, so I do what I do because I have felt God's call on my life for this. 5 years ago, if you'd have told me I'd be working for a ministry, I'd said, that'd be fun to work for a ministry, but I don't think that's where I'll be in 5 years. If you said, you'll be working specifically with an evangelistic ministry, I'd say, I support evangelism. I think is a great thing, but I don't feel that as a call on my life. And if you further went on to say, you're going to be working with youth, specifically in a discipleship program, I just said, you're out of your mind. That's not my comfort area. I don't feel called to that. The past 5 years has been a crazy roller coaster ride for me. God, in something that only He can do, He started off by planting desires in my heart, in my wife's heart, of saying, hey, why don't you start looking for some land with some specific things that go along with that? And so we started looking, and that brought us out to the Lodestar Mountain Inn after Steve had invited us out here. We came out here and we found, amazingly enough, that the land that we felt was the desire of our heart was located right next to the Lodestar Mountain Inn. So we ended up buying that and talking to Steve, and he agreed to hire me as the director out here. And I still would have said, my heart's focus isn't me being involved in evangelism. It isn't me being involved in the youth, but it is support. I've always been one of those people who I've done operations for a long time. I'm good at supporting things, but I didn't feel like I was being called to it. Well, God has a funny way of drawing you in slowly and preparing your heart. And over the past 3 years, God has really impressed upon me that the Great Commission is not only for those who have the gift of evangelism. There are people like Steve who absolutely have the gift of evangelism. They can strike up a conversation with anybody and share the gospel at any time. I know I don't have the gift the same way I have, but I have come to realize that as part of the Great Commission, that call of evangelism has to be at the forefront of my life. And I've felt God preparing me and calling me into that, and just that gentle calling that only God can do to pull you somewhere you really don't think you were ever going. And then with the students, just being so uncomfortable with them the first year, I was doing it because I felt that's what God was calling us to do out here. But I'm naturally uncomfortable with that age range. So we hadn't had a large group of youth out here for over a month. We had a youth group come in. It was 30 plus young people, high school age. They came into our event center, and the first thing they did, they came in and just started dancing around. And rather than my normal gut reaction of just being anxious and being really uncomfortable with it, I felt a peace. God said to my heart, you are doing what you're supposed to be doing out here. That's why I do it. That's why I wake up every day, and I'm happy to come out here, because I feel 100% I am where God has called me to be, and I'm doing what God has called me to do. I guess the final thought I'll leave you with is just praying for us, praying for, as we transition. Steve's still going to be the CEO. He's providing vision. He's providing guidance and direction. I'm coming in as a younger generation with a little bit more energy to keep pushing on and running operations and just doing the day-to-day. We're on the step of something that God is bringing to us next. There's a Navy base that is located about an hour from the Lodestar Mountain Inn, and we feel strongly that God has called us to buy that Navy base. Now, we don't have the $5 million that it's going to take to buy the Navy base. We also don't have the $3 million that it's going to take to get it operational. But we have the dream, and we feel like it's a God-planted seed to say that we can use that Navy base to reach so many people, to make it available to the community, to use it to train the next generation. There's been several places who have contacted us as we've been talking and said, look, if you get that, we'll be able to put our ministry there as well. We'd also like to do a One Life Year 2 program out there where we would continue the discipleship process as we train students on trades and entrepreneurships and just teaching them, preparing them for ministry. So we've got a lot of dreams of what we think God is calling us to do out there. So I would ask that everybody pray that somebody would come forward and say, I have the money for this, and I have the desire to support you in this. Because we're ready to move forward if somebody is able to help us get there. If you're somebody who can help us get there, we would love to partner with you, or if you know somebody. But the biggest thing is prayer for guidance, direction, and somebody to help support that dream.
Tune in to Overcomers TV on your favorite app or streaming platform. It's time to overcome.
Horizon Media Studios, producers of the television series Answering the Call, is looking for Christ-centered, Bible-believing ministries to feature ministries like Gospel Rescue Missions, homeless shelters, children's homes, Bible colleges and universities, mission sending agencies, pregnancy centers, and more. These are the doers of the word that James talks about. The Great Commission is to share the gospel and make disciples. Jesus taught us to pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest, and the harvest is ripe. We want to raise awareness of ministries and also mobilize the body of Christ to get involved and answer the call. Tell us about your favorite ministry. Email us at info@atctv.org.